You are listening to Mindset and Metabolism Mastery, Episode 10. This episode content was planned entirely by you, the listener. I'm tackling your questions in today's episode. Let's go. Welcome to Mindset and Metabolism Mastery, a show for women who are tired of feeling hopeless, defeated, and frustrated with their bodies and want to have more energy to show up every day as the best version of themselves. I'm holistic nutrition consultant Shannon Hagel, and I can help you reprogram your brain to create bulletproof consistency with ease and address your personal hormonal imbalances that are leading to weight gain. Life can feel a whole lot better with a body you love, delicious food, and a little wine. And I'm here to help you get there. Ready to lose weight and feel amazing in your body? Let's dive in. Welcome, friends. Happy New Year. We are starting the year with a very special episode and something we are going to continue from here on out. This episode content is all planned by you. Every 10 episodes, I'm going to let you decide what you want the topic to be by submitting the questions you want me to answer more than anything. So I've got questions that were submitted to me on our free Facebook community, Thriving Metabolism for Busy Women. But if you want your questions answered in a future episode, simply email us your questions at support@thrivefromtheinside.com with the subject line podcast. All right, we're going to just dive right in today. So our first question is from Christy W. What is the best test to request from your doctor if you suspect your hormones are off? This is a question I get so often, so thank you for submitting it, Christy. Now, I'll be really honest here. I don't often suggest that people go and get hormonal testing done. And let me tell you why. You have over 50 hormones in your body. At least a dozen of those impact your weight in some way. Your fat loss, your fat burning, your fat storage. The thing with most hormones is that they fluctuate. They ebb and they flow. They turn up and they turn down. And so when we do blood work, we're taking those hormone levels like a snapshot in time. They don't give us a clear picture of what's happening. For instance, with your sex hormones, your estrogen, your progesterone, your testosterone, when women get their sex hormones tested while they're in perimenopause, so not yet menopausal, but definitely having these fluctuations in their estrogen progesterone levels, when you get your lab work done, this snapshot in time, you might be catching those sex hormones in ovulatory cycle, which would mean that you're not making any progesterone. Your next cycle could be a cycle that you ovulate. Therefore, you would be creating progesterone. So it's not giving you a full picture of what's actually happening in your body. Not to mention, there are certain points in your cycle where you are supposed to be estrogen dominant. And the other half of your cycle, you should be progesterone dominant. I have yet to hear from a single client that has had their sex hormones tested whose doctor specified at what point in their cycle they should be getting that testing done, nor a lab tech that asked them at what point they were in their cycle. Add on top of that, that if you are perimenopausal, you probably don't even know what point you are in your cycle because you're starting to have either longer cycles or shorter cycles. So it's a little like throwing a dart at the wall. If we look at some of our other hormones outside of our sex hormones, they also fluctuate. Cortisol goes up and down all throughout the day. And you can guarantee that your cortisol is going to be elevated when you're getting a needle. Your leptin, your ghrelin, these are your hunger and satiation hormones. So they are going to change depending on when you last ate, as will your insulin. So these blood serum tests are not great at detecting what's actually happening, what is giving us that full picture of your body. Then to compound this even more, we have to look at the validity of these tests. Lab ranges are not telling us optimal health. So lab ranges are created from the average of the people that have taken that test. Most people are being sent to get their thyroid panel done. They don't just give that out like candy. There has to be a reason why they suspect your thyroid is either underactive or overactive to request that panel. So you're already pooling an unhealthy population. So these lab ranges are the averages of an unhealthy population. That's not where we want to be. So I'd say if you want to get testing done, what I would suggest and what would be more useful is testing your vitamin and mineral levels. right? Something like an oat test can be very informational about how your body is functioning and explain why, your thyroid might be underactive, or explain why you're in that estrogen dominant state. Knowing where your deficiencies are going to be a lot more helpful to supporting your hormone health than knowing a snapshot in time of where your hormone levels actually are. If you really wanted to get something like your sex hormones tested, I find something like the Dutch test much more useful, where you're taking that test at a specific time in your cycle. Now, I will say again that this is still going to be difficult if you're in that perimenopausal state, because it's going to be difficult for you to know exactly where you are in that cycle. So it's still not perfect at all, but it will definitely give you much more information. It will also show you the breakdown of certain hormones, such as your estrogen, because we don't have just one type of estrogen. When you're doing a blood serum test, it's going to be combining all those estrogens into one number versus something like the Dutch test, which will show you how your estrogen's actually breaking down and metabolizing in your body. This is useful information because you can then know if your estrogen is being shunted towards the more safe and healthy estrogens, or the form of estrogen that is going to increase your risks of breast and ovarian cancer. If you were looking to get your cortisol tested, again, I wouldn't look at a snapshot in time. At minimum, you want to be looking at a full 24-hour test. Usually that's done by a urine analysis. And this can give you a much clearer picture of your cortisol levels and how they fluctuate throughout the day. Now, I don't do any of these functional tests or any blood work with my clients because, one, it's not giving an accurate representation of what's happening in your body. Two, they can be extremely expensive and bring up more questions than actual answers. And three, what I find most often is that there's so much on a foundational level that is not being addressed to support your hormones, because a lot of the typical Americanized, westernized diets are not going to support your hormone health, nor will most of the fad diets that are out there. They're doing major damage to your hormones. There's so much that can be done to support your hormones before ever having to go down this road. You can tell where most of your hormones lie just through your symptoms. Your body will tell you when something is off. This is why I do what's called an NSP with my clients. So we're looking at your symptoms, their severity, their frequency, because each symptom is a message from your body saying, hey, you need to look over here. This is not right. Each symptom is related to different systems in the body. If we have a lot of symptoms that are related to a specific system in your body, we know we need to support that system. We know we need to start doing things that are going to increase the functioning of that system. I know so many of you have had that experience with your doctor where you have gotten blood work done and you're told everything is normal, and yet you still have all these symptoms. You sure as hell don't feel normal. And I think this is such a negative thing that has happened from these lab tests. Lab tests are really useful when needed in certain situations, absolutely. But we let these numbers from these labs run the show and then completely ignore what your body is very clearly telling you. So to be very honest, I wouldn't request from your doctor any blood work if you suspect that your hormones are off. First of all, it depends on what hormones you are suspecting are off. I would look at working with a practitioner that knows how to address the symptoms and the systems that are struggling. Okay. Question number 2. This one's from Selena S. So thank you, Selena, for submitting it. She wants to know, what are some daily foods or activities that can boost metabolism? So right off the bat, I would say, there's a problem, I think, with focusing on boosting metabolism versus creating a strong, thriving metabolism, right? And this might be like minutia, but honestly, we talk a lot or we see a lot in marketing. And to be fair, I've used this in my posts as well, boosting metabolism. Right? As though we can do something and it will just crank up the dial on our metabolism from doing that one thing. And then it will turn back down when it's kind of run its course, right? It's like giving a coffee to our metabolism versus focusing on the long game, creating a healthy, thriving, optimally functioning metabolism. So there's lots of scientific studies about certain foods that will boost your metabolism, right? Like cayenne pepper. Now, I don't know anyone who has gotten to their weight loss goals because they ate a bunch of cayenne pepper. If anything, you're probably going to have a lot of digestive upset before you ever get to that point. So rather than thinking about the short term, I strongly encourage you to focus more on creating that long-term, optimally functioning metabolism. So things to do in terms of a healthy metabolism would be things like increasing your lean muscle mass. We know that increasing our lean muscle mass means that our body is going to use more energy on a day-to-day basis, just even while sitting, while watching Netflix all evening long. If you have higher lean muscle mass, your body's going to use more energy than if you don't. So instead of focusing on, hardcore cardiovascular types of workouts, women in their 40s and beyond should really start to be shifting their focus to resistance exercise, right? Some weightlifting. Now, we also at the same time want to reduce stress, because reducing stress and inflammation is really important for building that lean muscle mass as well. You could be lifting all the weights, and if your body is chronically in a stressed or inflamed state, you are not going to be producing the hormones needed to actually repair the muscle, right? So I'll see this a lot with my heavy lifters, right? My CrossFitters, my Olympic weightlifting people, gaining a lot of muscle, but also a lot of like the fluff, right? The pudginess on top of this. This is where I was definitely in my 20s, where I was working out a lot, doing a lot of weightlifting and gaining not just like muscle weight, but also gaining fat weight as well, because my body could not produce the hormones that were going to allow my metabolism to stay functioning and strong and build this lean muscle mass. So increasing lean muscle mass, but always making sure that you're not overdoing it. So I would say, weightlifting, resistant exercise 3 times a week, 20 minutes a day is a good place to start. I wouldn't be doing any of the weekend warrior craziness. I would stop with the long distance running. I know I'm going to get a lot of hate mail about that. I get it. I used to be a runner. But for talking about what our body needs at this state for optimal health, that's not it. The other thing I would do is really focus on supporting my thyroid function. So your thyroid is the master controller of your metabolism. So if your thyroid is struggling, your metabolism will also be struggling. So some things to do would be to incorporate more iodine-rich foods, right? Foods from the sea are going to be really, really helpful here. Also, foods that are rich in selenium. So a great one is Brazil nuts. Brazil nuts are so high in selenium. So these are some things that you can do to support your thyroid function. Yes, even those of you who are on medication for your thyroid or have had your thyroid removed, you can still support your thyroid hormones, because you still have thyroid hormones, whether it's from medication or from your actual thyroid producing it itself. Okay, and the third thing I would do to support a healthy metabolism is sleep. Prioritize sleep over everything. I no longer wake up to do a 5:30 workout and sacrifice my sleep instead. Now, if I was going to bed early enough, that might make sense. But for me, the time that I am able to put myself to sleep, it does not make sense for me to wake up an extra hour early to work out and lose that sleep. Sleep is going to be the most important thing to have a healthy, strong metabolism long term. Now, I know there's some of you that are not able to control if you're getting that sleep or not, right? If you've got babies waking up in the night, if you do shift work, if you are on call, if you sleep next to someone who snores, these types of things. And I know hearing that having more sleep is really, really important just makes you more stressed out. So I have a solution for you. Don't worry. If getting higher quality, better sleep is not an option for you, something that you could consider incorporating throughout your day is something called non-sleep deep rest. This has had many studies done by it, and it is a form of almost like guided meditation, but puts you into the same wavelengths as a REM cycle. And this is really important because being in that REM cycle is going to allow your body to recover and restore itself. So you can actually get into those wavelengths in your brain that would be equal to that of wavelengths during a REM cycle with non-sleep deep rest. You can just Google it. They've got lots of free examples on YouTube. That's a great place to start. All right, let's dive into question number 3. How can metabolism be boosted in conjunction with hypothyroidism? So this question is from Michelle D. We've talked about thyroid a couple of times today. It is a hot ticket topic because I'll be honest, it is one of the biggest imbalances that I do see in my practice is not necessarily hypothyroidism where you've been diagnosed from a hypothyroid level, but an underactive thyroid. Because remember, when you're looking at that lab work, hypothyroidism is just this line in the sand where they have decided this is as low as we're going to let your thyroid hormones get before we want to call it something and give you medication, right? That doesn't mean that's when your symptoms start. That just means that's as low as they will let them go before they intervene. So I see a lot of clients with underactive thyroidism that don't necessarily have a hypothyroid diagnosis. So we're going to talk about that whole umbrella, not just hypothyroidism here. Hashimoto's, anyone who has part or their whole thyroid moved, if you have nodules on your thyroid, all of you are included. So like I said, your metabolism is controlled by your thyroid. So in order to increase your metabolic function, you need to increase your thyroid function as well. So some of the most important things to do for your thyroid health is actually support your adrenal health. Your adrenals, your thyroid, and your pituitary are like this little triangle of your endocrine system, and they not only talk to each other, but they impact each other as well. So if your thyroid is underfunctioning, you're going to end up with an underfunctioning adrenal system. But the beautiful thing is too, when you support one of these three, you also support the functioning of the others. So supporting adrenal health, I think, is one of the most empowering things that you can do with a low functioning thyroid because it is rampant. Stress is rampant in our lives. Even if you don't think you're stressed, I could guarantee that your body sure thinks you are. Because I know there's many of you out there that are these like high functioning stress addicts. I am one of them. I feel like when I'm in that overbooked, overwhelmed state, I have this hyper ability to focus, right? I can get more done. I feel more productive. If that is you, if you're a fellow A-type personality, right, that is all well and good, but that is stress. So some things you can do to support your adrenal health is one, removing stresses where you can. The second suggestion I'm going to give you is stop fasting. Okay, if you have any sort of thyroid issue, adrenal issue, you do not want to be fasting. I know intermittent fasting is a really popular thing to be doing these days, but like most popular things, you only have part of the information. It's not supportive of everybody. And so fasting, while it is supportive of your body's response to insulin, it is going to put more stress and pressure on your adrenal and thyroid function. So max I would fast if I had a hypothyroid is 12 hours, max. Now, most people, we all fast during the night. We all fast, right? The last meal we eat till the first meal of the next day, that is fasting, right? So I would just keep that window to 12 hours max. The other thing you can do to support your thyroid function and therefore your metabolism is get outside daily. Get outside into sunlight. Even if it's cloudy, there's still rays of sun. Okay, get outside daily. Do not let the cold stop you, my fellow Canadians. I mean, unless it's like dangerous, right? Then I'll give you a pass. But otherwise, get outside daily. Ideally, you would be getting outside first thing in the morning and then in the evening before dusk. I know not everyone's life will allow for that. So just do the best you can. Get outside. I know someone's going to ask me like, oh, I can't get outside all the time. Can I just sit by the window? Now, that might be like an okay alternative if you really can't get outside, but it's not going to replace going outside because those windows are designed to block out a lot of the sun's rays, right? So nothing will replace actually getting outside into direct rays of the sun, even when it's cloudy. Even if there's rain, you are still getting those rays. Now, like I said earlier, this all applies for everyone with thyroid issues, even if you are on thyroid medication. And I see this a lot, people with a hypothyroid diagnosis going on thyroid medication, being told that their levels are now normal, but still struggling with a lot of underactive thyroid symptoms. Right? Still struggling with that sluggish metabolism. And so how can it be that you have the thyroid medication delivering the hormone, your levels being normal, and still be struggling with an underactive thyroid function? Well, most thyroid medications are T4 based. All right, stay with me. We're going to get a little sciencey here. It is T4 based. That T4 is an unusable form of the thyroid hormone in your body. It still has to convert into T3 in order for the cells to be able to use it. So even when you're on medication, the majority of that medication is primarily T4 based. That conversion still has to happen in your body. So there's a lot of people that are actually hypothyroid from a cellular level, which means either T4 is not turning into T3 or that T3 is being blocked from getting into the cell. So how do we reduce cellular hypothyroidism? Well, focusing on reducing your blood sugar is really important, reducing your stress, and supporting your liver function. So reducing alcohol, meds that you don't need, drinking dandelion root tea, these are all great options. All right, I think that's enough about thyroid for today. So my next question is from Asenamich, and I apologize profusely if I mispronounce that. So her question is, what is one thing I can do today to improve my metabolism as a woman over 40? So there's so many things I want to say here. I had to really rein myself in when thinking about okay, what is the one thing? If I could only pick one, what would be the one thing? I think the most impactful thing for a woman over 40 to support her metabolic function would be to focus on eating a high protein, high anti-inflammatory fat, and high fiber filled breakfast. That would be the one thing. Okay, this is going to make your whole day so much easier. So some examples of a high protein, high anti-inflammatory fat, high fiber filled breakfast would be things like eggs. Eggs are so easy, right? There's so many ways to prepare them. You can whip them up into a delicious omelet filled with some veg. The eggs are going to give you lots of protein and healthy fats. The veg is going to give you all of that beautiful fiber plus lots of vitamins and nutrients that your thyroid, your adrenals, all these other systems in your body need to function really, really well. You can also serve eggs sunny side up on a bed of sauteed spinach with garlic. You could make them in advance into little mini muffin-sized quiches, or I guess frittatas, which is the one without the crust. Frittatas, lots of veggies cut up in there. You can eat them as a hard-boiled egg with a handful of fresh berries, right? So many options available to you. Another example, if you're not a big egg person, might be something like unsweetened coconut yogurt parfait with berries and lots of seeds. So seeds in place of granola, because most granola is going to be super high in sugar, in processed sugar, and in low quality inflammation-inducing fats. Okay, we want to stay away from that. So lots of seeds, such as pumpkin, sunflower, hemp seeds, chia seeds. These are all great choices. I'll give you a third option as well. This is one that is my go-to because it's so easy. My kids also eat it, so I can just make one big vat of it and it feeds everyone in less than 3 minutes. So I like to make a protein shake most mornings. So for a serving of a hormone supporting, metabolic supporting shake, we want to make sure that it's still going to be low on that glycemic index. So it's not going to be spiking your blood sugar a ton. So a serving of it would be like half of a cup of berries, a quarter of an avocado, 20 to 30 grams of a clean protein powder. Okay, I don't love whey-based or soy-based protein powders because they usually are fairly hormone disrupting, bloating, low quality. You could throw in a handful of greens. I usually like to throw spinach in there because I find it doesn't affect the flavor very much. And then I love throwing in a tablespoon or 2 of chia seeds as well. Okay, lots of fiber, lots of healthy anti-inflammatory fats, and lots of protein. Hey guys, I'm going to wrap it up there with a question. So if you want your questions featured on an upcoming episode, make sure you email your questions to support@thrivefromtheinside.com and put the word podcast in the subject line. I will see you on next week's episode where I'm going to walk you through what you need in order to get all the way to your goal weight. Happy New Year and have a beautiful rest of your day. If you enjoyed today's show and don't want to worry about missing an episode, you can follow the show wherever you listen to your podcasts. And if you haven't already, I would really appreciate it if you could share the podcast with others who you think might benefit from it and leave a rating and review to let me know what you think. It doesn't have to be a 5-star rating, although I sure hope that you love the show. I want your honest feedback so I can create an awesome podcast that provides tons of value. Visit www.thrivefromtheinside.com/podcast launch for step-by-step instructions on how to follow, rate, and review. Thank you for listening to today's episode of Mindset and Metabolism Mastery. If you want to learn more about balancing your hormones, repairing your metabolism, and losing weight with empowerment and ease, visit www.thrivefromtheinside.com. I'll see you next time.